Your values suck. That's what I'm debating. What a weirdo. Totally lying. It's very normal for a Miller to be completely and utterly lying.
No boy, what is there to say about Stephen Miller and his wife that hasn't already been said? Here we have an absolutely, dare I say, hilarious clip where Stephen Miller's wife and Cenk Uygur are going to go back and forth here. Off the rails, unhinged shouting match it turns into, with just some deranged comments and a full crash out, it seems, at the end by Katie Miller. Let's just get into this and react a little bit.
All right, now Katie. I'm done. Go ahead.
Why is it that every time someone wants to criticize Mamdani, it immediately comes back to the Jews and the anti-Israel movement instead of actually talking about his viewpoints, which is that
nobody said Jews. You just said it. You always do that. We say Israel, you say Jews. We say Israel is a government. Please don't make it about Jewish Americans. And you come back and go, you have to make it about Jewish Americans. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
Is Israel a Jewish state? Yes or no?
Yeah. First of all, okay, so Saudi Arabia is a Muslim state, and you can criticize it all day long, all day long. There's no special protection.
Because what you're doing is you're decoding language to...
But just great point off the mat. She's like, is Israel a Jewish state? Cenk's like, well, is Saudi Arabia a Muslim state? We criticize Saudi Arabia, or at least we should criticize Saudi Arabia all the time. And it's a Muslim state. We're not criticizing Muslims directly when we criticize Saudi Arabia. So the same thing when we criticize Israel. We have to be able to be intellectually, nuanced here.
American
Jewish state or a Muslim
say that
state.
We should not be here and we should not be in existence, and that you would be happy for other people like Mamdani to use it.
I want Israel to be safe.
Nothing of the sort.
Nonsense. You're totally lying. It's very normal for a Miller to be completely and utterly lying. That's not true. We want Israel to be a safe haven for Jews, 1967 borders. But you guys say, no, more Palestinian land. Take Gaza, take the West Bank, take southern Lebanon. Your greed knows no bounds. And by the way, you and your husband are supposed to be working for America, not for Israel. I think you're betraying this country.
All right, Cenk, let Katie...
Piers,
right,
if I could just jump in here on a quick note.
It's definitely a pro tip when you go on Piers Morgan. Make sure you have a decent mic, because otherwise nobody's going to hear what you're saying, and you're going to get shouted over by the likes of Cenk Uygur. In this case, for good reasons.
Omar, I'll come to you, but let Katie finish her point, then I'll come to you. Katie.
No, Piers, quite frankly, I'm really sick and tired of this racist, bigoted rhetoric that comes from people like you against my husband, against my family, and my children. I am raising Jewish children in this country.
Who brought your children into this? What a weirdo.
Piers, I'm going to be done with this if you're going to allow racist and bigoted attacks against one of your commentators just for the sake that he will not
hang on.
speaking.
Katie.
Piers is like, what?
To be clear, Katie, to be clear,
he inserted a line that says the Miller's lie. Is that not coded language for therefore we are Jewish? Come on, Piers. Where are you?
What?
Where are you standing?
God, you're so
Katie,
pathetic.
if I can speak,
if I can speak, listen. Fire him, cancel him, cancel him, America. Oh my God, Israel's feelings have been hurt. Why don't you work for this country?
Can we try and get
this country instead of Israel?
Can we try? All right, can we please? All right, let's stop the ad hominem attacks. Let's try and get this back to a more civilized debate, which is actually about the likely incoming mayor of New York. Katie, I was giving you the chance to respond. If you want me to do it for you, I'm happy to do that. But normally in a panel discussion, if someone makes... I agree, and you shouldn't be interrupted. So, Katie, let me just ask you, separate, let's not get into ad hominem stuff. It's honestly, I think the viewers are sick of it. Let me just ask you, Katie, what is your fundamental opposition to Mamdani? Because my view of Mamdani is he's very charismatic.
Hey, kudos to Piers for being able to pronounce the name right. Albeit with a British accent, but at least he knows where the M's and the N's are, unlike the rest of these fools.
He's a skillful politician. He has reined back on some of the more inflammatory things. He undeniably said, the stuff he said about the NYPD would be for some people disqualifying, frankly, in a city like New York. But he's managed to come through that by reining back on some of that stuff. And he is, as Cenk Uygur rightly points out, he has a remarkable popularity with young Jewish New Yorkers. I mean, it is remarkable that for someone who people have branded anti-Semitic, a lot of Jewish New Yorkers simply don't agree. They want to vote for him. So he is what he is. I also think, as Gillian pointed out, that probably a more obvious stick to beat him with politically are his views, which are pretty socialist. And what is fascinating about this politically, looking at the totality and potentially a future general election, is if you have a progressive socialist like Mamdani who wins in New York, is that the way the Democratic Party is now going to go? And does that have any chance of winning against what would likely be another MAGA candidate in 2028? So these are big picture issues that will come out of a Mamdani victory. But from your perspective, Katie, what is your fundamental opposition to Mamdani becoming New York mayor?
I want to start off with, do you agree when your guest says that the Millers always lie?
Oh, God.
Because that's what your guest on your show just said, is that the Millers always lie. And so now I'll
do Stephen Miller and his wife always lie? Absolutely. No controversy. Move on.
continue into saying Mamdani, just as you said here, is a socialist. He is someone who is going to drive New York to the bottom. I'm excited for him to win because he'll prove to every other single large city in our country that what you will see is failure, what you will see is high crime, what you will see is murders, what you will see is a prominent city in our country fall into complete disrepair, and you will see large amounts of capital and tax dollars exit the city immediately, because what people are voting for is their own downfall. When you play into identity politics, as he's done,
a lot of fear mongering. It's so ironic when you look at the fact that when people voted for Donald Trump, they were voting for their downfall, and not because, and how do I put this? Because Trump sells them a vision, and he's this great, fantastic con man that cons, just like the Republican Party has masterfully done for the last, 40 years or whatever, cons people into voting against their own interests, their own economic interests, purely based on, culture war nonsense. Trump famously running the trans ads all over the world. You drive people apart based on culture war issues, and then and then on the back end, you lower taxes for the rich, you raise taxes for the poor. You take away programs that would help and benefit working class and poor people, and you just destroy the economy, generally speaking. So
when you stand behind a podium and your first comment is, oh my gosh, my aunt on the train, instead of talking about all those who lost their lives on 9/11, then you're doing something wrong, Piers. But I will sit here and say that for the reasons in which he is wrong and which he will drive New York into failure is again the same reason why people on your show, instead of arguing the merits, as you say, of his opinions, they're going to sit here and use attacks on my husband and myself instead of debating us on our values and our opinions. It is gross, it is racist, and it is bigoted.
Jesus Christ.
And I will not join.
Talk about identity politics fucking slop. This woman is absolutely deranged. And notice she didn't bring up a single substantive policy. He's a socialist. Crime is going to go up. Murders are going to go up. New York to the bottom. And the billionaires are going to flee. All the capital is going to flee the city. Why? I don't know. Because of socialism and communism, and he's Muslim, and I don't know.
Your show again, if you
your values suck. That's what I'm debating.
This is so ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, Katie, let me just make it clear.
If I can jump here, Piers.
No, Cenk, stay out of this. Katie, let me just respond to that. Katie, normally, when someone makes an ad hominem attack on another panelist, that panelist is on the receiving end, gives it back, right? And you've chosen instead, it seems to me, to want me to do that for you. I don't mind doing that, right? But to me, you could easily respond. You're perfectly skilled and capable enough to respond to what Cenk said about you, and you've done that. And you've argued, very passionately why Mamdani would be a New York mayor. I'm not taking sides here. I actually don't like any of the ad hominem attacks that come on the show. But it's interesting to note that there have been an increasing number of very ad hominem attacks on Mamdani, and a lot of it has had a whiff of genuine Islamophobia. And I don't think it means that any of us have to endorse that or anything to actually accept that that is what's been happening. And I see the same thing happen with Jewish candidates in American politics. I see a stench of anti-Semitism from certain quarters towards Jewish candidates. But we certainly see this with Mamdani, and it's ugly, and it's horrible, and it shouldn't be. Yeah, you are a guest on my show, and I appreciate you coming on the show, and I like you coming on the show.
And I'm saying the two other guests on your show are welcome to participate in these anti-Semitic attacks that is so permeating on CNN and MSNBC.
This is so ridiculous. I'm sorry. I have to jump in here. Somebody criticizing you personally is not an anti-Semitic attack. If somebody says that you are lying, that is not an attack on Jews. That is an attack on you. and just stop hiding behind identity. This is all the snowflake behavior that the right is supposedly criticizing the left for.
Exactly.
That you're simply repeating here. Yes, Stephen Miller is a destructive force in American society. That is not an attack on Jews. That is no reference to his identity. This is an attack on him individually, and just deal with the merits of this case.
I love the fact that her mic sucks so that we don't have to listen to her shitty voice. Stephen Miller and his wife, who is basically just a clone of him. You can hear in the cadence of the way she speaks, she's trying to do her best impression of her husband there. Just awful people. I mean, they are doing everything they can to destroy this country. We've truly gotten to the point where the most immoral, the worst amongst us are at the top. I mean, Stephen Miller is like Trump's right-hand man, and you can imagine that his wife, Stephen Miller's wife there, you can see, has a very prominent voice in that as well. I mean, it blows my mind that the absolute worst among us are the ones that are in charge. What's the word? There is a word for that. It is slipping my mind, where we are governed by the absolute worst of us. Somebody in the comments, let me know. On the identity politics point, it is absolutely true. They whine and scream and bitch and moan that the lefts are like these identity politics, fiends, where in reality, the right wingers, and case in point, with this woman, are just absolutely leaning into the identity politics stuff and trying to use it as a cudgel, trying to cancel her political opponents right there in real time on the panel, trying to cancel Cenk Uygur and Omar there for nothing. I mean, for having a conversation. So, do with that what you will. Curious to know what you guys think about that in the comments. Absolutely unhinged panel there from Piers Morgan.